Dude, if I could get those, could have gotten those rates when I was a partner. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. So, Luke, let's switch gears a little bit and take a look at another witness that's being called in by the Justice Department. You got Pat Philbin here. Talk to us about what he knows when it comes to the January 6th committee.
Well, Pat Philbin would have access to a lot of the same information that Pat Cipollone had. The key difference here between them is we've heard from Pat Cipollone, at least portions of his testimony played publicly via video from the January 6th committee. The public has never heard from Pat Philbin, so we don't know his unique take on things or what he may have had access to that Mr. Cipollone didn't. But they were pretty much at the hip and in agreement with most of the actions within the Trump White House. The two of them often pushed back against some of the crazier ideas from people like John Eastman, from people like Sidney Powell. Ideas like seizing voting machines and ideas like sending a false letter to Georgia from the Justice Department or even meddling in the Justice Department. Both of them spoke out against those plans from the Team Crazy, as it's been called. But yes, so I do think that the two of them going in potentially opens up a new chapter in the Justice Department's investigation in terms of how high it's going within the Trump White House.
So Harry, given what Luke just laid out about Pat Philbin, we didn't hear from Pat during the January 6th hearings, but he was mentioned a few times. Let's listen to a bit of that testimony.
When did you first realize that there was actual violence or rioting?
I first realized that it may have been on television, or it may have been Tony, or it may have been Philbin. Pat Philbin, was very, as I said, I don't think there was one of these meetings where there might have been, but for the most part, I remember that both of us going down together, going back, getting on phone calls. He was also very clearly expressing this view.
When you talk about others on the staff thinking more should be done or thinking that the president needed to tell people to go home, who would you put in that category?
Well, I would put Pat Philbin, Eric Hirschman, overall Mark Meadows, Ivanka, once Jared got there, Jared, General Kellogg.
So there we have Pat Cipollone basically saying that his deputy, Pat Philbin, was there in the meetings that he attended. He was sharing the same views as Cipollone. So what does Pat Philbin bring to the table as a witness at this point?
A lot. He's a really important and underlooked player here. He's the smartest and the most experienced lawyer in the White House counsel's office. You remember the episode in DOJ many moons ago where there's the showdown at the hospital bed with Ashcroft and Gonzalez and Comey. Pat Philbin figures in that and on the good guy's side. And he did represent Trump in the impeachment, but his reputation for being a sort of straight shooter, institutionalist, really smart guy is huge in Washington. So he, among other things, I'm not saying Cipollone would be inclined to get squirrely, but he keeps him on the straight and narrow because anybody knows if he answers the questions, and I think eventually he will, though that's a whole nother topic, he's going to be straight up and he's not going to spare any words about Trump's illegality. So he really bolsters Cipollone in an important way. And look, you're right. They're there for everything. This is the sort of modern day equivalent of the White House tapes. Everything that's important, Cipollone heard, Philbin heard, and from what we can surmise based on what we've learned to date, they could bury the former president.
So, Harry, I want to stay with you for a moment because Politico has some great reporting on where the DOJ probe is headed and how a fight with Trump over his executive privilege claims could possibly go. Here's a bit of it. Quote, Donald Trump's camp has yet to say whether he'll try to use executive privilege to disrupt the Justice Department's grand jury investigation into attempts to overturn the 2020 election. But if he does, it could be a very short fight, a series of court rulings prompted by Trump's efforts to stymie the House January 6th election Select Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol sharply rejected Trump's bid to wield the power as a former president. We know, folks, that a few of the January 6 committee witnesses have negotiated their terms of testimony when it came to Trump. But what do you think? Should the DOJ go to court? Should they go there to fight these privilege claims? How do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, quick. I mean, if they're forced, they will. And there may be a kind of like two-step dance where Cipollone and Philbin want to get the order from the court, but are ready to really cooperate if they do. Or it could be that they try to fight it tooth and nail. But Politico's absolutely right, and it's not just that. There's previous D.C. Circuit case law, that's the controlling circuit here, that came up in the Clinton era when the deputy White House counsel, same role as Philbin, was forced to testify. Because what the court said is, this is not some separation of powers issue. This is the executive branch wanting to find out about criminal behavior within the executive branch. Forget it. Everything yields. He's got to give it up. So it will be conclusive in favor of the department if they have to fight. And the only issue is whether it could be strung along long enough to become a bit of a factor as we push not just to 2022, but to 2024.
So, Luke, given what Harry just said, what does your reporting say about the state of the DOJ investigations, whether it's gearing up to fight any executive privilege claims at all?
Yeah, I think that people have been critical of Merrick Garland, saying he's moving too slowly. But I think what we've seen in recent weeks is it has been slow, but it's been methodical. And I was just speaking with a couple of the Capitol Police officers in the hallway, and they said shortly after January 6th, Merrick Garland met with them and told them he would leave no stone unturned and he would get to the bottom of it. And so they have faith in Merrick Garland that he is going to do a complete investigation. Again, it may not be the pace that many people want here on Capitol Hill, but it is, you can see it happening. You can see the subpoenas going out. You can see new witnesses being called in by the week. And so eventually, I do think we are going to keep building all the way up, and we will finally get some answers here from the Justice Department.
Charlie, finally to you. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of the DOJ doing whatever it takes to investigate because there are some very, very big stakes here.
No, I mean, this will be the most important decision that Merrick Garland has made. It may be the most consequential decision by the Department of Justice in decades, and we should be under no illusions that it's going to be politically incendiary. It's going to be very, very divisive. On the other hand, I think what the Department of Justice has to keep in mind is the precedent set by not taking action, because that will essentially concede that the former president, current president, and maybe future president is above the law, and they cannot have that. And, and as I've said, look, there's going to be tremendous political blowback from charging the former president. We know that. I figure that what I'm recommending is that the Attorney General understand that whatever he does, if he goes small or he goes big, there will still be the same lack of proportionality in the response. So he might as well go big. He might as well make the strongest possible case. But the other thing, listening to this fascinating conversation, is it's always difficult to get inside Donald Trump's mind. But one thing I think we can be sure of is that Donald Trump believes very firmly that he can obstruct justice and that he can cover up his crimes. And now what we're seeing is how this investigation and this grand jury is moving into his inner circle, putting some of his key aides under oath in a federal court. And therefore, it's going to be much harder for him to pull that off. And I think that that's got to be changing the mood within MAGA land. They are absolutely convinced that they can intimidate prosecutors or, as they did, as they have in the past, intimidate witnesses and find a way to hide the evidence or exert various privileges so that we don't find out what happened. If, in fact, Luke is right, and I think that he is, that the Department of Justice is doing this very methodical investigation, that won't work this time.
All right. Luke Broadwater, Harry Litman, thank you very much for starting us off. Charlie Sykes is going to stick around for